All right, Jeff. So looking at your projections for this year now, 2021, and comparing them to where sales ended up last year, do you expect them to be up, down, or level?
We're actually expecting some pretty solid growth this year.
What are some of the big kind of like driving forces behind sales to be up this year, in your opinion?
Sure, no, absolutely. So yeah, obviously last year, I mean, we ended up very strong, but it obviously was a little bit of a down year. We had about a 3 month window there where things weren't happening in some of our major market segments. But really, what we're seeing is our growth is really being driven by our diversification in our products and our markets that we're serving. So our broader expansion into dry ice production equipment, CO2 plants and facilities, as well as just our core product offering and as well as our water treatment for both municipalities and industrial water for pH control. So all those factors are really leading into us continuing to grow very strongly.
Absolutely. So you mentioned you have a diverse product mix, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about a single one of them, but you talked about dry ice. Obviously, everybody, whether they're in the industry or not, is talking about dry ice right now with the rollout of the vaccine. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that has meant for business and what the process has looked like?
No, absolutely. I try not to get too ramped up in the vaccine aspect of it because I feel like it's a little bit short-lived. At the end of the day, the Pfizer vaccine is great, but the need to store at such cold temperatures hinders the distribution capabilities in the long term. And I have to believe longer term in the next few years, they've got to come out with an alternative way of distributing and really the product itself. Plus, you add into the Modernas and the AstraZenecas, their products don't require the same level of storage and transportation distribution. So, but I think it's brought a great awareness to dry ice. Really, what the dry ice need and demands being driven by is at home delivery on demand deliveries for food products and food distribution. The change in dynamics within both the food packaging industry and the food shipment and home delivery industries. So that's creating a broader demand. And I think the awareness of the Pfizer vaccine distribution got everybody very concerned that, oh, are we going to be able to get our ice? Are they going to be the essential ice users? And there's no more ice for us. Maybe we should make our own ice on site. And I think you're seeing a lot more of that.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it just now. We talked about it earlier in the year that dry ice is kind of becoming an increasingly trendy product even before the advent of the vaccine. Any other kind of big trends that have emerged in the past couple of years that you expect to expand or continue on this year and going forward that you're kind of excited about?
Sure. I'd say a little bit both in the ice aspect of it, but just in CO2. The ability to make your own ice on site, especially at the large food processors, the utilization of pellets versus snow in food processing and food freezing, really the headcount reduction that you can do inside of a food processing plant by installing automated on-demand ice systems. That's really been a strong trend for us, and we continue to see that grow. And certainly COVID has impacted that greatly. We all know food processors were heavily in the news early on. It's a very tightly packed environment of employees. So to enable to separate them a little bit more, obviously eliminating some of the headcount requirements is important. So automating some of that ice distribution within their facilities has been a huge driver for them. We're seeing more and more of that. But really, the water treatment side has been a very strong business for us and always has on the municipal side. So large scale pH control with CO2 has always been important. I think it's becoming more and more mainstream on what we would term the industrial market, which is just really any end user that has a high volume of water with a high pH. You generally would historically use sulfuric acid to treat that water. It's really not known throughout the rest of the industry out of these large, municipal water treatment facilities that CO2 is a great alternative to the caustic acids of the sulfuric and other type of acid products. So environmentally friendly and everything like that. So great opportunities and growth in those that we're seeing as we continue to kind of educate the market and penetrate deeper.
Absolutely. So looking ahead this year, ideally once we can put COVID behind us and it's not going to be driving all of our decisions anymore. Is there anything as it relates to Tomco that you're really excited about? Any new products, new locations, new lines of business, anything like that that you're really kind of jazzed up about?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably the largest growth engine right now for us outside of the ones we've already talked about would be CO2 plants. So, Tomco is very heavy into CO2 plants historically. I think we basically departed that market for a while back in, early 2010, 2015 range. That's with the introduction of Airwater Inc. As our parent now. Getting me back into that business. So we have been focusing on that for the last year and a half. But it's not just your standard historic ethanol plant or type of plant for that. It's the alternative sources of CO2, whether it's CO2 capture, whether it's off of flue gas, whether it's off of landfills. So getting into those markets to kind of generate CO2 on a smaller scale to make it more regional. So there's so many pockets throughout the US that don't even have access or easy access to CO2 and low cost CO2 that if you can produce it where it's at in smaller demands at a cost effective level, we don't have to spend so much effort and cost transporting it all over the place. I always look at like Florida is always my prime example of that. There isn't a CO2 plant in Florida. So, there's no access to lower cost CO2 in that region.
Sure.
So by enabling to get smaller scale CO2 production and liquefying it at a cost effective rate, that's really a market that we're focused on penetrating deeper.
Absolutely. It seems like a couple of the things that we've talked about might qualify, but just to cover our bases here, any niche markets that you either have entered that you think are going to grow or that you plan to enter that you see as potential growth drivers, 3-5 years down the line?
Yeah, I would think I would absolutely put that industrial wastewater treatment on there. Like I say, it's something we've been in, and there's multiple applications and uses already out there, but it just is not widely known. When I look at that, and say there's a million potential opportunity accounts out there that don't use CO2 today, and that's what's exciting for us and our partner distributors that we work with. It's not competing against somebody already using gas and saying my gas is lower cost than yours, we have better service. It is a greenfield opportunity where CO2 doesn't get utilized today that we can now utilize it. And the real benefit of that is when you treat water with CO2, you actually are sequestering that CO2. So we're taking CO2 out of the air, sequestering it in the water. So you have that full life cycle, the green initiative, if you will.
Okay. Anything that we haven't talked about that you believe is going to contribute, whether it's positively or negatively, to your company or the industry, in 2021 or just looking ahead?
No, I think we covered a lot of where our focus is, and as I noted, with our parent company Airwater, we're always expanding both into the CO2 and the atmospheric gases as well as hydrogen. So basically everything that our membership here at Gauda is partaking in is exactly where we want to position both Taylor Wharton and Tomco, all of Airwater products into it. So our focus at Tomco is absolutely on the applications. Historically, obviously, we've always done CO2 transports and bulk storage, dry ice, water treatment, but it's the applications of CO2 that we're constantly looking to grow and expand and work with our partners within Gauda to make sure that there is a market and we help them grow their market for CO2 utilization.
Awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to stop recording.